There's a new exhibit at the National Museum of Crime and Punishment in Washington, D.C. that has literally gone to the dogs. Animal House producer Steve Williams took a tour of the exhibit with Dr. Randall Lockwood, Senior Vice President of Forensic Sciences and Anti-Cruelty Projects for the ASPCA.
For many animal lovers, it was the crime of the century.
Today's latest from the Michael Vick dogfighting case.
That brought international exposure and infamy to the so-called sport of dogfighting.
I deeply regret my previous involvement in dogfighting.
For the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the Bad News Kennels scandal was another in a long history of battles against dogfighting in America, going back to 1868, and a legendary case in which a New Yorker named Kit Burns was arrested by ASPCA agents for operating huge pits, where, according to news reports of the day, men killed rats with their teeth and dogs fought each other to the death after they killed as many as 100 rats in just a few minutes. An exhibit that features evidence seized from more recent dogfighting raids is now open at the National Museum of Crime and Punishment. It's called Dogfighting, the Voiceless Victims, and includes tools used to train, fight, breed, and even kill injured animals.
Well, this was actually seized in Missouri. It was being used to electrocute dogs that wouldn't fight.
He's the curator of the exhibit, Dr. Randall Lockwood.
This is a map of dogfighting arrests since 2000.
There are a lot of
dogfighting. There's about 800 pins in this, and it just shows the distribution, which kind of generally tracks the U.S. population distribution, but we do see a preponderance of cases in the Southeast. Also, this kind of reflects the level of law enforcement commitment that, for example, the Attorney General in South Carolina created a dogfighting task force and put a high emphasis on going after dogfighters. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's more dogfighters in South Carolina, but there are more arrested dogfighters because it's been taken seriously. So this is actually a blend of both incidents and law enforcement taking it seriously. That kind of produces that map.
Mm-hmm. And then we walk over here, and what I see is probably one of the more historically significant artifacts of the dogfighting in the United States is this document right here.
That is the indictment papers for Michael Vick, which really describe in detail what the investigation demonstrated, what undercover investigators had documented of his involvement in fighting and killing dogs that he ultimately did admit to, some of them by electrocution, not that particular device, that was from another scene. And that really drew public attention to dogfighting in general.
You were involved in.
This is our team. This is our team evaluating the dogs that were seized from his property. ASPCA was asked by the U.S. Attorney to put together a team to try to evaluate the dogs.
What is this medieval-looking contraption?
We call this a rape stand, where the female is literally, her hindquarters goes there, she's tied in, her head goes there, and she's strapped in, and then the male is put on her. They often will photograph this, both for their own perverse pleasure, but also to prove this male mated with this female. And then if he's a champion and she's a champion, their pups might be worth, $1,000, $2,000 a piece.
Where do you get this stuff?
These were seized from the largest dogfight raid in U.S. history back in 2009 in Missouri. That actually covered 8 states, arrested 23 people. We seized over 400 dogs. Many of them were pregnant females, so soon we had 500 dogs. Ultimately, about half of them were successfully rehomed and rehabilitated.
These artifacts are indicative of a Herculean effort on the part of the ASPCA to deal with this problem of dogfighting and animal cruelty. Is it working? Is this effort?
Absolutely. First of all, the public awareness of the crime of dogfighting is certainly elevated. Law enforcement taking it seriously. The fact that the Department of Justice deems it worthy of distributing materials on dogfighting to thousands of agencies around the country, and actually several countries have copied the contents of that. I had a letter from New Zealand. They basically took the content, gave it a New Zealand twist, and within a few months they'd done the first 2 dogfight raids in New Zealand. The question I get asked most by the media is animal cruelty on the rise, or are we winning? And we just don't know. Partly because there's no systematic tracking of animal cruelty crimes. It's not one of the FBI reportable crimes. We had a case in Baltimore where a dead pit bull was found on the Amtrak tracks. Last year, that would have been considered, some call sanitation, clean up the tracks. they called in a crime scene group because they realized this could have been a discarded fighting dog. If someone in a city environment is saying there's some kids fighting dogs in the back alley, and police say, yeah, well, we don't, it's only animals, then that sends the message that we don't take your call seriously. If they say we'll dispatch a vehicle, suddenly it's an enormous, community policing opportunity, which is why we're funded in some of our training by the community-oriented policing services of the Department of Justice. They see this as an important part of community policing because people get really upset about animal cruelty in general, dogfighting, and they want to see action.
Dr. Randall Lockwood, thank you for the tour.
Thank you. Dog Fighting, the Voiceless Victims is an exhibit on display until September 2nd at the National Museum of Crime and Punishment in Washington, D.C. Dr. Gary Weitzman answers your questions about pets and wildlife next in the Animal House.